Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sounds from the Studio, brought to you by Contemporary Craft. Contemporary Craft fosters the use of traditional craft materials such as ceramic, fiber, glass, metal, and wood to make art. Our community honors the history and heritage of craft while showcasing modern, exploratory work.
And since our organization is located in Pittsburgh, PA, we decided to bring some of the stories of our exhibiting and studio artists to a broader audience by way of this podcast. I'm Rachel, the Executive Director at Contemporary Craft.
And I'm Camila, a podcaster and art enthusiast. We are your hosts for this journey, and there are many ways to keep up with us. You can go to the Facebook page and like it, Contemporary Craft, on Twitter at SCCPGH, Instagram at SCCPGH, or just go to contemporarycraft.org. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We just ask that you please follow, rate, and review, and also share alike.
We had a wonderful time at our holiday crafted event where we specifically curated a series of ceramic cups and jewelry from around the country, specifically for the event. That said, there are still a few of those pieces left, and if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, you can find it at Contemporary Craft. We believe in supporting artists while also giving the gift of art, and there's no better time than the holidays and the new year to make that a reality. Stop by or visit our website to browse that collection.
All right, so Adam, Chau, welcome to Sounds from the Studio. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. It's going to be amazing. I can just feel it in my bones. I can't wait to talk to you more about your practice, as well as we can, hopefully we have time to get into a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am really looking forward to talking with you because we haven't actually met before, but I can tell you that the day that your work arrived in our store, everyone on our staff rushed to the boxes and were really excited as it was being unpacked. So thank you for working with us.
Great. I know exactly what that's like. I used to be a part of a ceramic gallery, and when things came in, it was like a birthday every single time, opening up a present.
That was exactly what it felt like.
That's great.
So if we can, maybe we can start there talking a little bit about the work of yours that we currently have in the store. It's all, if I understand correctly, made from porcelain and decorated with a cobalt blue kind of pigment. Can you talk a little bit about that choice of material and the colors?
Yeah, so I primarily use white porcelain clay. It is a cone 6 clay, so I have electric kilns. If anyone wants to geek out about it, I can talk shop. It's a cone 6 porcelain, fairly white, and I use a blue and white aesthetics because I really want to research and connect with my Asian heritage. I'm half Chinese Vietnamese and half Caucasian, and I think that I want to connect with my culture in a really deep way, and the way I can think of it is through craft. My family owns a bakery, and there's the food component to how I've grown up. But I think personally, and going into a career, I wanted to mesh all these things together, and I think craft is a great way to explore my culture and my family roots, and to make new ideas also. So there's a long history of blue and white in Asia and throughout the world. And I really want to move that forward. I want to incorporate 21st century symbols and motifs and technology to talk about how we're living today.
It's funny that you just mentioned your family owns a bakery, because one of my favorite sets that we had were the small dessert plates that say "Eat more carbs."
Yeah. Yeah, so I with those, it's kind of a Chinese takeout box with I think it's a fortune cookie with a little fortune that says "Eat more carbs," and I think it's cheeky, and again talking about 21st century symbols. I love emojis. I love icons. I love the visual culture that we live in, and I want to kind of immortalize it.
Yeah, it's something because, as you had mentioned, like the blue on the white porcelain, that's something that's a motif or an aesthetic that's really familiar to all of us in some way, shape, or form. It just spans through generations as well as cultures, and you don't really know like exactly. I mean, I guess the first image that comes in my mind is like some dishes that my grandmother had like ages ago, and it just kind of like it just goes like everyone is just familiar with that.
Yeah, it really lives in the domestic space, and I want to kind of keep it alive and update it and have it be refreshed in something that, as a millennial, I want to see my aesthetics represented in the object. So I just think it's a little bit of a continuation and a refresh.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like a lot of your work is inspired by alternate fiction with images generated by AI. How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm working on a series right now where I use AI to create images of queer men embracing, kissing, and looking at kind of a gay queer utopia. It's fiction. I want to be transparent about that. It's an idealized space. It's a space that I want to see, and they're all cast in blue and white aesthetics to kind of look like it is old timey or from the Ming Dynasty, as if it were to fit in history, kind of saying, "Hey, this is a potential. Look at what we could create."
And I gotta say, just looking at the photos on your website, they look authentic, as though like they were coming from the Ming Dynasty. And you also call them counterfactualism.
Yeah, counterfactualism comes from an essay that was titled "What Almost Was," and it was an essay about how alternate fiction started popping up in literature via sci-fi, via other types of genres. But it was an essay written by, I forget the name. Someone can, if anyone can use a search engine, put it up. Our listeners, you can find the essay, and it's about pinpointing when that became a thing, when this idea of alternate histories or speculative histories came up. And the word counterfactualism could be seen as pejorative. However, in a scientific sense or an unbiased, objective sense, it's not. It's just saying this is a proposed history, a proposed alternate fact or against fact.
Yeah, the use of technology in your work and that alternate reality is interesting to me, and I'm curious a little bit about the keyboards as well. For the listeners that might not have seen this work, they're essentially porcelain keyboards, and you can see all the keys, but the letters aren't necessarily on those keys. But you have used what looks like a fingerprint or a blue dot on each of what would be the letters to spell something out. I think the one that we had said "I'm sorry," which has been fun to watch people try and stand there and figure out. They like process with their hands, like what are these letters, to try and figure out what that means. So can you talk about that work a little bit?
Yeah, the keyboards have, they're essentially secret messages. And I love this idea of the finger leaving some type of residue on technology. I also make cell phones with little tap marks in blue. I love the blue because it means so many different things. It could be ink, it could be a replacement for ink. It could also conceptually be like tears on a piece of paper dripping down. And I like the idea of just the residue that we leave. So if we turn our phones off and look at it, there might be a little bit of greasy fingerprints on it, little marks, and you kind of have to play detective of what was left behind. So I think about the future a lot, and as well as the past, Ming Dynasty, and combining technology, and to think about people wondering about how we lived, how technology was in 2023 or in the early 2000s. How did we live with technology? So this is kind of a little bit of a portrait. These keyboards are how we have interacted with each other.
I love that. It's also like compelling when you put it that way, to think about when will the keyboard become obsolete and then what follows it, and how that's a bit of an artifact of our time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the messages themselves, I first started with the use of language and messages because, right, I'm a millennial. When I went to college, I got my first cell phone, and a lot of people, older generations, were, criticizing cell phones and texting, saying that it was antisocial. And I just saw a whole world of opportunity where you could send a message to a loved one. Obviously, when I was going to college, that was the best way to stay in touch with my parents. And I kind of want to flip that idea that it's being antisocial and that a text message, can just be as powerful as a handwritten letter, and that it could be a 21st century love letter. My husband is Dutch. He's an immigrant. He lives with me now in Connecticut. However, we were long distance for many years. He was living in Amsterdam, and I was in the U.S. And without the internet, we would have no relationship. So I just think the ways technology is increasing how we can communicate. Look at us right now. Through a screen, talking, having a dialogue is great.
It is. It's and like you compared the texting to like the handwritten love letters and all that stuff, and Gen X here, so I'm like on the brink like between like the digital world and like the linear written word and all that business, and it is absolutely great, and it does open up like all of this big wide world for us to communicate and find people that find our tribe and all that, and thank God for it. But it's like there's always those little things that just kind of like not upset, but just like kind of like just bother me, because it's like I'm very tactile, and so when like my husband, like one of the like the second time that he told me he loved me was in a text message, and I don't have that anymore. Like I don't have like, and it kind of sucks because we don't have like our little love letters to like to describe what things that went on while for our daughter to see like sometime in the future. So it's just like it's one of those things, and I still have the phone in itself and I refuse to get rid of it, but it's just like that's just one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually made a piece kind of like that. It's floated around the U.S. in different exhibitions. It's 48 tiles in the shape of an iPhone, and each one of them has a message that I wrote to my now husband before I actually went over to Holland for the first time. So when we were kind of courting each other, I did, like you were saying, you don't have that. So I kind of wanted to immortalize it, which is also the reason why I work in ceramics. Digital technology is this ethereal thing. It seems like it can go away. Data can go away. It can get hidden. It can get destroyed. Ceramics is grounded in the earth. It's permanent. The colors won't fade. It's fragile. If you drop it, it'll break, but it will stay. It's an archive. And that's why I like working with those two things and combining them together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right, that's why the world needs artists, because it's so important that we somehow create some kind of physical archive of these moments, because yeah, to your point, Camila, like it all becomes kind of ephemeral at some point, but it's not. Like we want the
Right.
thing, the tangible thing to connect to, which is what makes this work, I think, just so enticing to me. It's that
Yeah, I take like Pulp Fiction, if Pulp Fiction was a real thing and they like blow up all the servers instead of those what was it, a bank, and then we lose all of our technology and our like human knowledge. That I think about that a lot actually.
Right? Like, what happens then? So, like, to that with the text and digital world right now, emojiware, is this what are these the pieces that are at Contemporary Craft right now?
Yeah, some pieces of my Emojiware series are there, and really that was spawned with looking at older Chinese ware in liking it, but feeling that it wasn't of my generation. Let's just put it that way. In that emojis are a type of language. It's a visual language. I use them every day. I read them every day. And how can we combine those two things and build stories from them? So I'm not quite sure what's in the shop right now. But I work with emojis in many different ways. Sometimes it's just one symbol that's kind of an act of empowerment, like two men kissing, like that emoji with the heart, and they're like smooching.
Yeah.
And others are multiple emojis that kind of create a story. And I would say those are not as narrative and literal as they're not real stories, but you can make up a story in your head.
Yeah, and I guess in a sense, emojis are kind of like the cave drawings now.
Yeah, hieroglyphics, pictograms, all of that. I love that we're kind of, in a way, backtracking into a more image-based way of
Yeah.
reading.
It's all very. It's everything is just like it's just a pendulum. As the pendulum swings, like we always just get back to eventually where we were at some point.
Yeah. And I think they're beautiful. It's beautiful
Yeah.
to use pictures as language.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a photographer, and so I'm very visually driven. And yes, but it's still like trying to, like maybe communicate. My husband, he's like not as technically as advanced, and he has a 16-year-old niece. And she, when he texts things to her, she sends back emojis, and he's like, "I don't know what this means." Like, like it's like a series of emojis, and he's trying to like figure this out, translate what it is. So I got it.
That's so funny. I'm with Dan. Oftentimes I'm the one who's like, so can someone translate this for me? But that brings me to another kind of different topic, Adam, I'm not sure if you like manage this project or participate in it, but on your website, I'm really interested in it either way. And that's the Lunar Project, which is an exhibition series that highlights the work of Asian artists celebrating the Lunar New Year. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I started the Lunar Project as a way to get in touch with my fellow Asian American artists and just start conversations. I do say I'm the curator for it. However, there have been other things that we've done with either a co-curator or that doesn't need a curator at all, and I can go into those. Primarily, it is an exhibition series that goes to a different city every year, and I ask 12 Asian American artists to create a single piece inspired by the Asian zodiac. So they have to choose one animal out of the 12 to make a piece. It does not have to be literal. As in, if you choose the dragon, you don't have to make a dragon. You can be very conceptual with it. You can look at the traits of the animal. Every country has kind of a different story over why those animals exist. For example, in Vietnam, there is no rabbit. There's the cat instead. So you could potentially say it's really 12 for them, but there is a 13th animal, the cat. And I worked with all different types of cultures from Vietnam, Japan, China, Korea, etc. And it's just created this beautiful dialogue on what it means to be part of the diaspora and what it means to be here celebrating a culture that's kind of in a different country. It is celebrated here, but like, what does it mean to outwardly and publicly celebrate it as well? So this has gone on for 3 or 4 years now. I've been in many different places where maybe there is an Asian community directly tied to the gallery that I'm working with. Sometimes it isn't, and it's really amazing to see the turnout. For example, I was at Mainline Art Center a couple of years ago, and they didn't think that they had an Asian community. And, it wasn't reflected in their student population so much. However, we did a traditional lion dance a little bit after the opening of the show, and we had over 400 people come.
Wow.
Wow.
So, I think it's great to bring this concept to different places to show them, okay, you can drive engagement. And now I'm really happy to say Mainline Art Center, they have made the choice to have it be an annual event.
Oh,
So instead of just this one and done thing, they really want to commit to the community and celebrate the Lunar New Year. And past the exhibition, those artists, we have a book club as well. So that doesn't need a curator, right? So
Right.
it's really just me wanting to connect with community.
I love that. How do you choose your cities?
So I choose the cities based on my previous network, and then I pitch. I pitch the show. It's really contingent on that gallery's time frame. So I like to work about 2 years out. and it either fits or it doesn't fit, and then I kind of just draw a list. I send a proposal. It's really proposal based.
Yeah.
And ask, where is it going to be for 2024? You mentioned Year of the Dragon, so I'm sure you're already underway.
Yeah, so I'm actually still in negotiations, so I cannot say. However, I can say 2025 is slated for the Asia Society in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So
Oh, wait,
I just haven't signed the paperwork, so I can't. I don't want to.
Fair.
No, that's
fair.
completely understandable. Yeah. So 2024 is the year of the dragon.
Yes.
This year, I was born. I'm a dragon. I guess. I think.
Great. Yeah. That's a very lucky, very giving, very kind in at least the Chinese story of the Great Race, where the Jade Emperor asked all the animals to have a race to come to be solidified in the calendar. The dragon actually has the most power to go first, to get there first. It can fly. However, it saw one of the animals drowning in a river and saved it so it can go. So it sacrificed its own, getting in line first in order to help other people.
Ah, yes, an age-old tale. Sacrificing my own well-being for others. But that's great. I love the idea of all of these different artworks based upon the different zodiac signs.
Yeah, and really, it's a jumping off point to talk about like really deep issues that the artists really want to talk about. So it's a catalyst.
Yeah. So when was it, Adam, that you accepted that you are an artist?
Oh, I think I accepted it when I took my first pottery class.
When was that?
It was when I was probably, 14, 15 years old. And I wasn't a good student in school. I was flunking all of my classes. I wasn't motivated. It was a slippery slope where I had moved and, I was in a new location and didn't have too many friends. Getting friends at that age is horrible.
Yeah.
And my academics were slipping because I just wasn't feeling I was fitting in. But like I said, my parents own a bakery, and my whole
you should
life
have,
I
like,
was.
a lot of friends. Parents owning a
I
bakery.
know, you would think. So I had to work at the bakery after school, and baking is a handcraft. You use your hands. So I was very dexterous. I knew how to use my hands. So when I took a ceramics class in high school, it was like a duck to water. It was it was fairly easy for me to do the assignments. And to be honest, I got a lot of attention for it, and that made me feel really good.
That's awesome.
And
Who doesn't love a little spotlight shown on them? Like,
and,
come on.
as a kid that's failing, you can just think like, the one thing that you're getting kudos for, obviously you're going to gravitate towards that. And it just made me feel, I'll be honest, it made me feel special. It made me feel appreciated. And it was something where I said, there's something to this, and I want to pursue it. So I was lucky enough to convince my parents that art school was a good choice for me. So when I started ceramics, I said, I want to stick with this. And I took ceramics all throughout high school and really built up my portfolio. And I had I went to an extremely affluent high school that had a very, very well-established faculty, and they had a history of getting people into art schools. So they helped me with my portfolio. I think I was one of the very last grades to submit slides into art school. I think the year after it went digital, and I was so angry at that because getting slides done is horrible.
It's a process, yes.
I can totally relate to that. I think I was finishing undergrad and I had just got slides of all of my, culminating work and prints, and it took so much time and energy, and I waited so patiently for those slides to come back. And then the next year it was everything is digital.
What
Yeah.
a kick in the pants, man.
I have those. Just like you have your phone, Camila, I have my slides.
Right. Well, I'm glad you took that class, and
Yes, I'm very happy I took that class.
That's
you mentioned did you have to do a lot of convincing to your parents that you want to go to art school?
No, they were hesitant. However, I was extremely fortunate again that I had an older cousin about it would 5 or 6 years older than me, and he had just gone to a program in Philadelphia, and his degree is actually in computer science, but it was a graphic design
Yeah.
kind of program, and he got a job right out of school. He got a graphic design job, and that convinced them, okay, you can, this is a sustainable thing. You can get a job, maybe go into the design area,
Right.
or if you get a fine art degree, you can still go into design. And that kind of, it made them more comfortable knowing that someone had done it already and could sustain themselves.
Right. Like, this is a thing. This could
Yeah.
work. Like, this. It's like I will not be destitute. Like, hopefully. Fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up going to grad school for industrial design. So, I mean, that was also, in the back of my head was like I did want to learn the practicalities of things, the business side of things, and how to manage at a larger scale. So now I have a solo studio. However, I bring in those, with all the technology, kind of understanding how to streamline my practice. I have a laser cutter. I have a CNC machine. I use AI.
Oh, yeah, you are really doing it, and I'm sure your parents are extremely proud of who you've become.
Yeah, thanks. I think so. I think sometimes it's a little odd for them to see, it's like who wants to see a plate with like two men kissing? Yeah. Actually, a lot of people.
Right,
But
yeah,
I think
there's a market.
Yeah, the first thing
There is a market.
that you sent us was like the two men with the hearts and the eggplant emoji. I mean, boom, out of here, same day.
yeah.
So, let's get into. You also have a podcast.
Yeah,
Trade
I do.
Secret.
It's called Trade Secret.
And how did this come about?
We finished our second season. It's a collaboration with the Archie Bray Foundation, which is in Helena, Montana. It's a ceramic residency program, and they started this podcast network. I believe there are about 5 or 6 shows that are on. One is about glaze chemistry. Another is about, it's the Tales of the Red Clay Rambler that was absorbed by the Brickyard Network.
Wow.
By Ben Carter. It's a very long-standing interview-based podcast. And mine is called Trade Secret, which really looks into the professions and the overarching topics within art, craft, and design. So I pick a topic and interview 2 people about being a professional. So it could be a curator, it could be a full-time professor, it could be a full-time potter, or just a researcher. So I go into, these professions because I wanted to create something that I should have had when I was in school. All those burning questions.
Exactly, and something that like high schoolers who are telling their parents now is like, I want to go to art school. They can point to this and be like, hey, this is something, like, these are professions that I could possibly get into.
Exactly. Yeah, I really just want to just be transparent about the field and how it works. I didn't really get a chance to talk about being in a nonprofit. I really wish maybe the 3rd season we can go into that. But as you all know, that's also a different
Whole different
profession.
whole different
I
animal.
have a day job. Yeah, I have a day job in nonprofit, and how do you balance those things?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing.
Yeah, that podcast, that's an interesting segue into one of the more standard questions that we ask. And I wonder, at this point or earlier in your career, do you or have you had a mentor?
Yes, I have many mentors, and I actively seek them out and stay in contact with them. Early on, I just saw the value. Again, just to read it, I went to school for industrial design. So even though my background's in ceramics, when I graduated, I didn't have the ceramic network. I didn't have peers in ceramics. I didn't have professors in ceramics. And I was desperate to kind of build that network up. So I actively looked for people to talk to. I'm a bubbly social butterfly. So I don't have any fears about just going up to someone and saying, "Hey, do you want to talk?" If they don't want to, that's cool, but usually they do. And I have built up my network, and I have different people from different areas of the field. So I do have a business mentor. I have someone that used to own a gallery and is retired, and I call him up. He's in his 80s, and we chit chat once a month. And he gives me advice from pricing to how much I'm putting out. It's great. I really recommend befriending retired people because they have a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
They
Very
have a huge wealth
valuable.
of knowledge. Yeah. And then I helped bring up the Color Network, which is a organization that helps artists of color, primarily in ceramics, and we started a mentorship program as well. So I have mentees now. So I have mentors
Nice.
and I have mentees. And it's for emerging artists that are paired with more established artists. There's also peer mentorships. I highly recommend going to thecolornetwork.org to look at it. It's not structured. The only structure is that you kind of agree to meet with a mentor mentee 6 times within 6 months in any mode of communication. I had someone in Taiwan that I only emailed, right? And then other people I just FaceTime.
That is fabulous. I love that idea.
You sound incredibly busy. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really impressive the amount of things that you're doing.
Yeah, I think my calendar is my friend. Definitely. And then yeah, I have a day job. I'm a curator at an arts council in New York. And that's a strict 9 to 5.
So wait, so you live in Connecticut and work in New York, or?
Yeah, so it's not New York City. It's right above the Bronx, Westchester County. I used to live in Westchester for about 8 or 9 years, and we moved because I just bought my first house this
Oh,
year.
congratulations.
So I'm in my first house, and we got it because I really wanted to have a studio. I had a studio in the building that we were in, but it was very small and separate from where the apartment was. And it was a beautiful place up in Cold Spring, New York, which is along the Hudson River, very idyllic. But I kind of, it was time, right? It was time to have an office. We needed 2 offices, so we both work remote. We're both hybrid. And I wanted, a functional studio where I could really determine where kilns could go with proper ventilation, where all of the digital tech could go that would be safe. Yeah.
Wow, that seems like a real feat just to plan all that out like that.
Yeah, it was hard to determine what we needed, but once we actually started to understand the type of houses there are, then it was actually really easy. So we have a raised ranch. And for the listeners, a raised ranch, if you don't know what that is, it's primarily officially like almost like a ranch, which is one long level, and then it's raised, which means it has a bottom level that is usually finished and you can walk out of it. So I have a garage and then that's attached to a finished basement so I can walk in and out of it. And then there's a second level, so it's on a hill that I can also walk in and out of. So the first level, the top level is for living, and the bottom level is where my studio is. And I did that because, it's attached to a garage, so the ventilation is really easy. Getting clay in and out and work in and out of the bottom level is great. So I think a raised ranch house is perfect for any artist.
So I think that leaves us with the last question that we usually part with.
Yeah.
Gives us a little insight into your personality.
Yeah. So, Adam, would you love to share with us and the listeners the 3 songs that you think describe your work?
Sure, I'd love to. I actually wrote them down, and I'm trying to pull it up so I can say them correctly. One is in French, so
Okay. We wait.
I don't want to butcher. I don't know French, but I'll try my best. The first one is by Yell, Yelle, and the song is Je veux te voir, or te voir. I can. send you the link, so perhaps you can put it in the show notes.
Sure.
And that one is actually a really popular French song that was a criticism to this singer's partner, so she's a singer, Yell, and her partner was a rapper, and wrote a derogatory song about her and women. So she came up with a kind of a clapback over how men within rap and hip hop can degrade women. And all of these songs, I should say, are kind of like irreverent, fairly bitchy songs, which I think fit my personality. The second one is by Marina and the Diamonds, and the song is Prima Donna, and that also is about feeling okay with being a diva or being empowered,
Nice.
right? And how that can be celebrated, how you can celebrate yourself.
Nice.
And then the last one is by Licky Lee, and the song is Get Some. And I like that song a lot because it is framed in a way. So one major line of the song is, "You're going to get some because I'm your prostitute." And I think that, again, is about empowerment, right? It's like, it's sexually empowered. You know, all of my work is queer coded or overtly queer, and celebratory in that queerness. And I think all those three songs do it in a way that are very matter of fact, very again, it's celebratory, but it's also plain. It's kind of doing something from a perspective of, I don't have to prove this. I know this already. I know that I celebrate myself. I'm empowered. What am I saying? Like, it's not brave in the fact that like you're scared and you have to like do something. It's like I hold my own power. And I think my work kind of is about relationships, is about queerness, and is celebratory. Most of the time, it's like pointing out the good things.
Yeah, I look forward to listening to those. And for listeners and for you, Adam, we have collected all of the songs that our guests have given us, and they are all on a Spotify playlist called Sounds from the Studio. So you can feel free to check those out.
Great, thanks. I think, yeah, it's very danceable.
Yes, bonus points for being danceable.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, Adam. It was great to have an opportunity to get to know you a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that I can be a part of this.
And where can folks find you online, or you have anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'm primarily on Instagram. It's Adam Charles Chau. My website is adamchau.com, and I really encourage everyone to, again, look at the Color Network. So it's thecolornetwork.org. I'm no longer a part of it. I was on the board for about 3 or 4 years, and I've transitioned to now be on the NCCA board.
Right on. And so we will have those links in the show notes. And, hopefully, Adam, with your super duper busy schedule, you will find some downtime at some point. So I hope you have pockets of time where you can just be.
Thanks. And like actually enjoy my house.
Right. Yes. Sounds from the Studio is produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Contemporary Craft. Hosted by Rachel Rierick and Camila Adams, with production support by Mandy Wilson. Please subscribe to and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to share. Thanks for listening.